You are AOL's digital prophet.
Yes.
What the heck do you do?
I spend most of my time traveling, talking to clients and agencies and at conferences about what's going on. So really, I sort of take what's happening in the trends, what's emerging, what's innovative, and sort of make it, boil it down for people in the mainstream. So really innovate and ideate, but also inspire for people. That's what I do publicly. Now in closed room,
Actually, I'm a little afraid to hear the rest of this.
I spend a lot of time also with clients directly talking about brands and what they should be doing and sort of agnostic view. So I spend a lot of time talking about trends and distilling it down to how it applies to brands.
Okay, and I do have a question about that, but before we get to that, so you got some flack. I mean, there was a period of time where everybody was talking about you because of your title.
Yeah.
So did you make up the title of digital prophet, or did you just do some word wheeling and came up with it?
No, I made it up. And the reason why that is, look, at the end of the day, the internet's meant to be fun, right? So I don't take it too seriously. I'm a creative at heart, and evangelist. Who wants to be called an evangelist, or who wants to be called an architect or a creative? And in this new economy, I think there's a time and place for things to change, man. And we're at a place where people can look weird and they can have weird titles, but they're still saying things that are interesting.
Right.
And that's where I thought, for me, that was. I didn't think I'd get flack from having a title called digital prophet. I mean, clearly I don't look like a prophet, my man.
So you talked about talking to brands, and I did want to ask you about that. I mean, what is the single most important or key piece of advice you give brands about reaching millennials, the people who aren't paying attention?
I think the reality is they are actually paying attention. They're paying attention in different ways. So if you actually look at the sum of the parts are greater than the whole, so they need to be at each one of those intersections where consumers want to be. And if we're talking about the millennials, they're not necessarily distracted, they just actually want to be attracted to brands in a way that feels really authentic. So it's authenticity, meeting them at the right place, right time with the right information. And it's about conversation, because they want to be able to have that dialogue. They don't care about awareness marketing. They want to just have this beautiful interaction with brands, I think.
So they want to interact with brands, but one of the trends that you said for 2014, you're like, unfriend, defriend, unfollow,
yeah.
Which seems counterintuitive, the opposite of keying in and paying attention, because isn't that how you connect with brands and other people?
Yeah, but here's the deal, man. It's great because a lot of things I say are taken out of context. So if you actually saw my presentation in its entirety...
Okay, so I'm going to admit, I watched the video. You had a video with this beautiful music and your little sound bites.
And let me tell you about that. Let me tell you about why I did that video. That video were for really, the audience for that were people who've seen me present before, so they can get a sense of where I'm going to next and where we can connect the dots to the conversation I've had with them previously. But let me address that particularly. Why I think defriend and unfollow will be a trend is that I think that people are going to move out of these places of just popularity, and they're going to go into these other areas where it's more humble, more quiet, more serene, where they can actually have conversations deep with brands or with other consumers. Look, at the end of the day, we're at South by, the things people are talking about are apps that are about hush. Apps that, secrecies right. So it's not about, hey man, it's a popularity contest. I'm not 11 years old. It's about having deep conversations in the right places. And those places are everywhere. For every WhatsApp, there's probably 20 apps like it behind it that do very similar things. There are actually means of people engaging on that. And it's having deep conversations that aren't just in the 2 or 3 places that people think that all this engagement happens in.
As the digital prophet, the oracle of the future, what is the key thing? Like what sort of wisdom can you share that you think is the most important thing people have to know about the future of the digital space?
Well, I think it's not so much the digital space or marketing or digital marketing. I think it's obviously it's marketing in a digital world now, and especially now that we've got more of this connectedness, so more and more of these devices that connect us to that. It'll be interesting to see how these connected devices either interact or not interact with mobility, so what that does for screen attention, etc. Because we've got these other devices doing it. But at the end of the day, I think the number one thing that people are still going to want to do is be touched by stories. I mean, we're talking about stories now. I mean, I'd like to think I'm a storyteller. So stories and contextual, stories relate to people when they're humanized. At the heart of everything we do, digital and non-digital, I think stories are the things that peak for people. And they're the things that people want to talk about and brag about. And from a brand's perspective, when I defend brands, I think that's really what they should be doing, is doing storytelling. And at the heart of that is video. And I never would have thought that somebody could storytell at 6 seconds. You're a great 6-second storyteller, man. All the way up to something like 13 hours, A House of Cards. It's a great story that people sit down and they're intrigued to sit there and they're intently there for 13 hours. It's incredible.
It is amazing how quickly you can deliver an idea, whether you can do it in, you do it in an hour, 2 hours, or right down to a couple of seconds. It's remarkable. Want to play? Go ahead.
Sorry, I think the last point I wanted to make about that is, at the end of the day, it's about human connections. So if you can tell stories in a way that make people connect better offline, and digital is enabling you to do that, I actually think that's the net benefit of all of this converging.